All right, we are 5 minutes past the hour, and I would like to welcome everybody to the second AI and Lunch program. My name is Daniel Catlin. I'm with the Gateway Workforce Initiative. Again, I want to welcome everybody and thank you so much for spending your lunch hour with us today. Really looking forward to a wonderful presentation from Chris Haber with Easy AI. But before we get into that, I know there's been a lot of news in AI over the last few weeks. And I wanted to turn it over to Michael Beauchamp with local IT so he can go over some of what's been in the news. Michael?
Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the news because I want to get Chris on deck as quickly as possible. But we do have a format here, and that is to first cover some of the news that has come out recently. I tried to get some of the things that are a little bit bigger and have a more long-lasting impact to bring to everyone's attention. The first one is with OpenAI considers restructuring into a public benefit corporation. So this kind of has, if you're not aware of it, this kind of has history of when Elon Musk was a kind of a co-founder and a contributor to OpenAI when they got started with Sam Altman, the CEO, and they had always had kind of visions of a nonprofit. That has not been able to really be sustainable. They need to have some profit so that they can continue to grow OpenAI and ChatGPT, but they've gotten a lot of scrutiny from that, and they want to try to be responsible in the world and how AI is just making considerable upsets to our economy and to our culture, but hopefully it is more beneficial than there is any sort of downsides. So just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention that's back in the consideration. Sam Altman's been speaking a good deal about that. Next, we've got Meta in the news. Zuckerberg predicts AI companions will outnumber real friends. So if that doesn't mean anything to you, think about people who, maybe don't have access to a therapist, or they don't have access to, a more specialized customer service agent. Maybe they don't understand how to buy a product or something for their home or for their family. That's what Zuckerberg is talking about, that you would have more access to an individual real friend or a real spiritual advisor or a real therapist. I know this can be scary to a lot of people. It definitely gives me pause. I have real friends in the real world. I have very few Facebook friends, ironically. But I also have kids, and I don't necessarily want to live in a world where they have more computer friends or more AI friends than they have real friends. But if I may, I do want to make have everyone consider the upside to that. What if you don't have access to a therapist or to that specialized customer service advisor or to a social advisor? Then that can really help someone be educated, come out of their shell, be able to interact with people in the real world. So hopefully we see a lot of upsides to that and no downsides, but we definitely should be cautious. So David Sachs forecasts AI will expand a millionfold. So if you're not aware, there's two things you should know about David Sachs. At least, first and foremost, he is the U.S. AI czar to the Trump administration. And he is also one of the contributors on the podcast, the All In podcast. I highly recommend everyone check out the All In podcast. It's probably just one of the greatest things for technology and politics and economics and world news that's out there today. Some really smart people doing a lot of contributions there. Briefly, let me just kind of go over the very high level of what does he mean and what's the time frame of that AI will expand millionfold. So we see the LLMs are improving by about 3 to 4x annually. The GPUs, or the compute that is used to power all this artificial intelligence, is improving many X as well. And then we're seeing the chips scale so much. So all the big players, Meta, Microsoft, Google, and many, many more worldwide are just building out these data centers, and there's just a pervasiveness of getting these out there. So he's saying that in 4 years, we could see a million X leap in all of that technology. So that's the news. Let me get to the even more important part, which is our guest speaker for today. So I have known Chris Haber for many, many months at this point. He is the owner, operator of Easy AI. I'm in a couple of different groups with Chris. We have had many lunches, many coffees, many conversations. He has collaborated with me on many opportunities for my business, my customers, and I have shared with him as he leans on me as the Google Workspace expert, and I lean on him for almost all other things that I have questions about in AI. So, Chris, I really appreciate you being our second speaker, and I will hand it off to you.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Daniel, for having me on. I appreciate you guys inviting me here today to talk. My name is, as Michael said, Chris Haber. I'm a native of Foley, grew up here. I run an AI agency consulting business in Fairhope called Easy AI. I've been doing that for about 1.5 years now. And we focus mostly on business consulting and communication AIs. So agents like chatbots, voice agents, SMS that's connected to an AI, that sort of solution. We do a wide range of AI integrations, but that is our focus. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to do sort of a very high level view of what those services are, but rather than try and cover everything because we have limited time, what people usually find the most interesting are the voice AIs. So we're going to go through a live build of a voice AI here in a little bit. And if you have access to your web browser, you'll be able to follow along. If you don't, it's no problem. You'll have access to this video later, and you can always come back and follow along and build it at your own pace in your own time. But to start, let me just see here, make sure I share the right screen, which is always the tricky part for me. Okay. So, yeah, hopefully everybody can see that. I kind of want to pick up where Michael left off at the last meeting. If you were here, he did a great job of explaining how to use Google's AI suite directly. He went through the different products, so Notebook, LM, and Gemini and all that. What I want to talk about today is kind of picking up where he left off and interacting directly with AIs versus integrating them into services like AI chatbots and voice AIs. So what I mean by that is when you're going to ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, you're interacting directly with the large language models. You can think of them as sort of the engines that drive everything. There's just a handful of them out there. GPT, Claude, Gemini, Grok, Llama, which is Meta's AI. And they sort of drive everything. Whenever you build a chatbot or a voice agent or anything, you're going to plug into one of them, but that agent is just the chassis for the engine. So really you can switch out which you prefer, Gemini or ChatGPT, and the agent can still exist. So think of the agents more as the drivers for those engines. They're built around the AIs, the LLMs. They follow goals, they make decisions. So when you're interacting with ChatGPT, you're interacting directly, but when you're interacting through an agent, that agent's going to take the input and it's already has an additional set of parameters, so it knows to do a certain thing. So if that agent is there to guide you through technical support, that's what it's going to do. They can access tools like calendars and databases and all sorts of things, and that's what really makes them shine and what makes them powerful. So to simplify it, the LLM is the brain, the agent is the body. And so what we do at Easy AI is we build agents specifically for businesses. So there's many forms that an agent can take, but the ones that we usually interact with are, modalities like chat, speech, or SMS. So these are the most common areas that you're going to interact with an AI if it's been a customer facing or even internal facing. Now these solutions have been around. We've had chatbots, we've had voice, limited voice on phone systems for years. What this changes is it takes a rigid system where you have to press one or you have to say yes or no, and it opens up into a completely free form conversation like you would have with a person. And when you plug in memory, then you get a sort of dynamic experience as opposed to a rigid one, which means that you can accomplish a lot more with a lot less programming. And so it brings the cost of having these systems down. Think if you have in the traditional, you have an SMS that might just send out an automated reply. But if somebody replies back to that with, actually, I need to change to a different date, that wasn't always possible. That would require a phone call. But with AI, because we're plugging that brain in, now we can actually have dynamic conversations, and it gives the customers more options. Same goes with chatbots. For a long time, chatbots have been on websites forever, but they usually, do one or two things. They might have a very specific chat flow, but often they're just collecting contact information. But with AI, we can, again, use that to sort of bridge into CRMs, SOPs, any sort of database you have, and then we have a dynamic conversation going where the AI will realize which customer it is, and it'll be able to immediately pull up their information and answer questions, saving you the time of having to actually do that yourself. So I'm moving through this quickly because I want to get to the build, but just, to talk about voice agents a little, I think everybody understands what they basically do. If you don't, there's some use cases I've listed here. These aren't all the use cases, but they're great for things like answering phones, scheduling appointments. If you have a business where you need to qualify your leads before they go into a certain person, they can do that. It can ingest it into your CRMs. Outbound agents think of if you have a website funnel and somebody enters their information, well, instead of just getting around to it when you can have an outbound agent immediately call them back at that phone number they just left or the email and engage with them. If you're a doctor's office, you can have an automation where at the start of each day, there'll be a batch list of people to call and confirm their appointments. So you can do stuff like that. Now, I did put a little asterisk here because when it comes to cold calling, there are legal considerations with AI. So I get this question a lot because people want to know, hey, can I just have an AI call people? You can't. US is pretty strict on that. Inbound is fine, but if you're going to do outbound calls, you have to follow the rules of your state, which every state varies a little bit. But you can do business-to-business cold calling if you follow the rules of your state, but calling people is not allowed, calling consumers directly, unless you have already acquired consent, which is why those website forms are so important. It's important that you get that consent when they sign up. The benefits of voice agents, I won't really spend much time on this. This is just more, I think, stuff that people understand inherent to agents. So what we're going to use today is VAPI for the build, but there are several, and there's a lot more than this. These are just sort of the popular voice AI platforms that businesses and people that aren't coders can go to and easily build voice agents. So this is a way to sort of skip over having to do a lot of in-depth coding to get a basic agent. Now, if you still want to, tie in into a database or something, it does get a little complicated, but these four are probably, I would say, the most popular right now for this specific use case. The one that I prefer is VAPI, and that's the one I'm going to showcase today. Now, if you have access and to, you're at your computer and you can open up a new window or tab and follow along, then that's great. I'm going to move at a pace that everybody can, hopefully in a few minutes, have your very own voice AI, and it won't cost you anything. You might want to expand this window that I'm sharing so that you can see, because it will, I'm going to switch over to another screen here in a second, but it will, there'll be some small text that you'll need to look at. So give me 1 second to switch to the window that has, hopefully everybody can see that. So if you aren't at your computer, don't worry. This will be posted later, I think, Daniel, so people will be able to follow along at their own pace. Also, if you get lost along the way, that's also something you don't need to worry about, because I'm happy to answer your questions later. But just for the sake of time, I'm going to run through it. So the first thing you want to do is go to vapi.ai. That's vapi.ai. Make sure you don't go to .com. That's some other website that seems to be scammy. You'll click on the sign up button. That's going to open a new window. Now this window, unfortunately, wants you to sign in. You've got to come down here where it says don't have an account and hit the sign up button. So make sure you hit the sign up button at the bottom and not the sign in. Refresh that. So then you just put in your email, whatever password you want. I think it needs to be, 10 digits with a letter and a symbol. And then it's going to send you an email to confirm. No. Okay. This may be because I already have an account. Let me see here. 1 second here. Copy that. This is the hardest part of the build, is just verifying your account and actually getting an account set up. But once you do that, see here, it could also be that we're all trying to sign up at the same time. This is the fun of live builds. If it doesn't go, I'll switch over to another VAPI account that I already have set up and show you there. Okay. So for whatever reason, that is not, it's not going to let me in. I think it's probably because my browser has too many VAPI windows. So give me 1 second. I'm going to switch over to a different account and I will continue the build there to show you. Okay. So this is just a testing account I use. When you create your account, your screen's gonna look a little different than this one because, of course, this is not a freshly created account. You'll probably see one screen that says Riley, I think is their default agent that they give you. So actually, in fact, I might have that account somewhere because I was testing this yesterday. Let me see here. That's not the correct one. Okay. Well, I can't seem to find it. So what your screen is showing you probably right now is a single agent called Riley, but we're not going to use that because it's set up for and it doesn't work out of the box. It assumes that you're going to be adding tools in to actually book to calendar. So we're not going to do that. If you do see a name below Riley called Elliot, what you're seeing is the name of the voice agent being used. So Riley would be the name of the assistant, Elliot would be the voice agent. Now to the right of the assistant columns, you're going to see the main work area. Don't get by all of this because you really don't need all of this to do what we're going to do today. What you see here is this area. You can click this little double arrow to expand. This is the main work. This is the prompt area. So this is just sort of a sarcastic AI that I sometimes use just to test different voices. But for Riley, if you expand him, you'll see that this is a huge prompt and it gives specific instructions for scheduling and what to do in every scenario. Now, this prompt is where the magic happens. And if you're wondering why, you'll see, now mine doesn't have it, but in what you're seeing on your screen, you'll probably see, hashtags with a varied structure, follow this. That's markdown language. And the reason we have markdown is because AIs follow instructions really well with markdown. So the reason it's structured that way, in case you're wondering, hashtags or pound signs, if you're from my generation, is because it's in markdown. But this is the meat and potatoes area of the voice agent. So this is where you would tell it what you want to do and how, and what's going to determine its behavior. Now, like I said, because this has a specifically built around scheduling, we're not going to do that because that's a time-consuming voice agent to build. What we're going to build is we're going to build a basic FAQ agent for your business. So what I want you to do is come over to this left column that says Create Assistant, where I'm hovering my mouse, and hit Create Assistant. This window is going to pop up, and you can give it whatever your name you want, Bob, but make sure you're on blank template. That's important. So don't select one of these pre-built ones and hit Create Assistant. Now, once you do that, you'll have a new assistant, and you'll see that, again, it defaults to Elliot as the name underneath. I'll show you how to change that later. But now we have a prompt area, if you chose blank assistant, that has this very minimal instructions. So this is what we're going to change. And how do we change it? Well, of course, we're going to use AI. So what I want you to do, there's two ways you can do this. Let's see, I'm going to paste a prompt into the chat window of the Google Meet. So you can take this prompt to either Gemini or ChatGPT, and you can paste it in, but you're going to want to change. I'm using local IT here, but you're going to want to, what you want to do is before you hit enter, you're going to want to change it to your business. If you don't have a business, feel free to use local IT. I'm sure Michael doesn't mind, but I'm going to switch back over to a window where we can see. I'm going to take us over to ChatGPT. 1 second, and I'll show you exactly what I'm doing. Okay. One second. All right. Here. You don't have to use ChatGPT, but it's free. So if you don't have an account, this would be a good place for you to go. Okay. Bear with me. I'm going to pull this up so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Okay. Sorry for the delay. So you're going to take that. If you can't see the chat, this is the prompt I want you to paste. It says, I want you to create a prompt for an FAQ voice agent for this business, : and then this is what you're going to change to your business. Now, make sure you hold down Shift if you try to add a new line, because if you don't, then you'll send the message. Shift and enter, because otherwise it'll act as sending the message. If it does, then that's fine. Just repaste it again. Make sure you include this last sentence to please put output in Markdown. And when you do that, it's going to create, now your screen might look different than mine, depending if you used Google's Gemini or if you used Claude. But it should output something that looks like this. Oh, wait a second. I might have, yes, I left out one important step. Sorry. This little button at the bottom, you need to make sure that this button is clicked. It says search, because that's going to actually let ChatGPT go to Michael's website and look at local IT to actually create the, otherwise it doesn't know what to look at. So now it's going to Michael's website and it's getting all the information that it can see, which is just basic information. It only takes a second to do. Once that's done, you come all the way down here where you see this little copy button, and you're going to copy that. And again, where you copy this script might be different if you're using a different AI, but if you're an open AI, it's down here. And then you're going to go back into the AI we had pulled up just a second ago, and I'm going to switch back to that. And I promise it won't take me as long this time because I know where the window is now. So now we go back into VAPI, and this system prompt, we're going to delete this system prompt and we're going to paste in what we just made at ChatGPT. This is a very basic, and you can delete, things like this where it says markdown. Sometimes it has a little extra garbage. This is a very basic prompt just to get you started. Once you have that in there, you can hit update and then publish. Now, VAPI has a little bit of a bug where sometimes it doesn't save the information. So to verify that it did publish, go ahead and refresh your screen and make sure that the instructions are still there. If they're not, mine are still here, but if they went away, then just paste it in again. It's just this weird thing that sometimes happens in VAPI. So now you have your basic instructions, you have your agent name, whatever you set it to, and hopefully it's reflecting what your business does. And I'm just going to slow down a minute, make sure everybody, if they are following along, has had a chance to copy, paste, and publish their instructions. Okay. If you've made it this far, congrats. You're basically at the stage where you have a voice AI. Now I said we're not going to go into all the settings because we don't have time for it, but there is one setting that you'd want to change right away. And it's over here in the models. As you see, you can choose any provider you want. So you don't have to use OpenAI. If you like Google, you could use Google. You could use XAI, which is Grok. The reason we're on OpenAI is because they have very low latency. Now, if you look up here at the top, you see this colorful ball. This latency is at 1050 milliseconds. Latency doesn't really matter with chatbots so much because people are texting. They expect there to be a slight delay. So you would go with the best model you could get your hands on. But with voice agents, it's different. The experience really depends on how fluid and human-like the voice agent sounds. So you're going to want to pick the fastest and lowest you can get, which is currently the GPT-4o mini cluster at 390 milliseconds. It's easy to find because it says fastest. So click on that. If you do choose Google, you're going to get about 1,000 milliseconds. So it's going to be noticeably slower. After you select GPT-4o mini, you want to, again, publish your changes every time. And at this stage, you now have Elliot as the voice. You have your basic, in my case, local IT information, and you have your model, the engine that we spoke about earlier. Now, that's all you need to do this. I'm going to talk to the assistant, and you'll hear what it says.
Hello.
Hi.
How can I assist you today? You can ask about our services, support inquiries, or any IT-related questions you may have.
So if you got some distortion, that's because I'm on a Google Meet, but normally, you won't have the distortion issue. So if you get that now, you can try again later. But obviously the Elliot voice is bad. It's the default voice. It's very cheap. It's provided by VAPI itself. So you don't want to use that voice. So how do we switch voices in VAPI? So there's a couple of ways to do that. You see up here at the top where it says model transcriber voice. You can click on voice. And again, you'll get a list of providers. These are all different companies that provide AI voices. The best voices come from 11 Labs. But the problem here is that there's no way to preview the voice. So you don't know really whether you like the voice or not. So here's the better way to do this is to come over to the left side, this left column, and click on Community. It's going to expand and show you a voice library. Click on the voice library, and it will take you to this page. Now you have dozens of voices that you can sample. But what we want to do, because I've said 11 Labs is my preferred, I'm going to filter down. I'm going to select 11 Labs as my provider. I'm going to select a female voice, and I'm going to look for a Southern accent. So here I see American Southern, and that brings it down to one voice, Grace. So if I click here,
Never mistake motion for action.
I get Grace, so I can hear what she sounds like. So, but how do I get that back? So what you're going to want to do is copy this little copy symbol. You need to hit this button. That is copying Grace's ID. We're going to go back up here to our assistants. Click on Assistants and click on Bob, the one you just made or whatever you named it. Go back to Voice. Select 11 Labs as your provider, and a little checkbox will appear that says Add Voice ID manually. And you're just going to paste in that voice ID that you just selected, in this case, Grace, but you may have selected a different voice. Click off to the side somewhere and hit Publish. Again, I'm going to do a refresh just because I want to make sure that it actually took. So it took. I'm going to try talking again. Again, if you hear some distortion, that's because we're on a Google call.
Hello.
Hi, can you tell me a little bit about local IT?
Local IT provides a range of IT services to help businesses manage their technology needs effectively. Our offerings include managed IT.
There's a little bit of a hiccup and distortion because we're on a call, but you get the basic idea. That is all that you have to do to get your most very basic voice AI answering, after hours or nighttime caller. Those are the basic steps. That's how you put in your prompt. That's how you change your LLM engine, and that's how you set your voice. So everything else in here then just gets into the specifics of, where do you take it from there? Well, you can, if you want to start including things like CRMs and you want to put in advanced calendar management, the way you do that in VAPI is through tools. And we're not going to get in that today, but you can see I have a couple of them here that are built out. And what these tools have are parameters. And this is when we get into a little bit of code. These are parameters that will create, JSONs, and they'll go to my webhook here, which will go to another program, which will create all the magic behind the scenes. But we're not going to get into that today. I just wanted to show you basically the basic steps of how to build your own voice AI agent. Hopefully, some of you were able to follow along. I know I had a little bit of technical hiccups there, but if you have any questions about it, you're able to ask me after I finish presenting, or even after the call. So that spot, I'm going to stop. Well, I'll leave the share up, but Daniel, I'll hand back over to you for any questions people might have. I can't hear you, Daniel.
Thank you so much. Forgive me, I forgot to hit the unmute button when I hit the put my camera back on. But no, if you have any questions, please, there's a little hand icon towards the bottom of your screen. If you have a question, please feel free to indicate by raising your hand, and I'll recognize you, and I'll see about bringing you up so you can ask your question. But as of right now, I don't see anybody taking me up on the opportunity.
I see two hands raised.
Do
Got
you?
Tim Lauer.
Oh, I don't see that. All right, I will make Tim a contributor real quick. Tim, you should be recognized. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hey guys. First, thank you very much. This is awesome. Thank you, Chris. Is there a way to add like that tool to your website?
Um,
Like for
you
either
mean,
the chat bot or for it to not make calls for you, but if somebody inquires to call them or something like that?
yes, so you can create a chatbot for your website that can be either text-based or voice-based. You have the option. So when they come to your website, it's that little pop-up window you see, and then they interact with an AI, or they interact with, if they choose to use voice, they can do that also.
Tim, I muted you because I was getting a little bit of feedback, so I'm assuming everybody else was. Did that answer your question? Yes, wonderful. All right. Michael, help me out because I don't see any other raised hands, but you said there was another.
Yeah, I'm not certain how to pronounce the first name. The last name is Sisk, S-I-S-K.
All right, you are recognized. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question. Not hearing you if you've asked your question. Gulf Coast Zoo.
Can you hear me?
Gotcha now. Perfect.
Okay, sorry. I have an account for the 11 Labs, and I noticed you use them for your voices. Can 11 Labs do the same thing that the VAPI does, or did you use the one because, I mean, why did you use one over the other if you use the voice from the other?
You're muted, Chris.
Thank you, Daniel. That's a great question. And 11 Labs, you absolutely can create a voice agent. It's a very similar process with those voice agents I showed on the slide earlier, Bland, 11 Labs, Retail, and there are others, beyond those. You can absolutely create a voice agent just like we did here. The process is slightly different, but a lot of it is the same. You're building out a prompt, and then you are plugging in the tools. So the prompt, is basically your agent. So you have your base level, whatever you're choosing, OpenAI, Google, and you're putting the prompt on that, and then you're connecting the tools. The reason I chose VAPI over 11 Labs today, and the reason that I prefer VAPI to a lot of the others, is because it gives me the most, from a developer standpoint, I have the most access to the back-end tool. So I can connect to a wider range of software and CRMs than I can, say, with 11 Labs or Bland. Retail is also good, and retail is especially good for if you were looking for a solution for outbound. They have a window where you can just drop in a CSV full of people, and so long as you have permission to call them, you can just batch call them with your agent. So they all have like their speciality and what they excel at. But the 11 Labs one is totally viable for a basic, agent like this. And to be honest, I know they're getting better all the time. So it could be, so that's one thing. The disclaimer with all of this is like what I'm showing you today might not be viable in a month because the speed of AI is intense and things change from week to week. So it could be that 11 Labs will be the preferred provider in a month or two. But right now for me, it's VAPI. Hope that, is there anything, does that answer? Hopefully.
I think we got thumbs up, so that's a yes. All right.
I don't see any other Daniel right now, but Chris, I'll field you or I'll throw you a question if you don't mind.
Thank you.
So I know that I have a little bit of knowledge of this, but really this is a straightforward, honest question. I don't know the answer to this. So I'm not just throwing you a softball. I'm actually going to give you a hard one. If I were going to reach out to you and say, hey, I want to develop this, and you either give me expectations of what kind of labor that's going to take or what it would take, and as far as, you don't have to give me hours, you don't have to give me money, I'm just like, manage my expectations on how much effort am I going to have to put into this. If I want to have someone give my company a call and I'm going to have that agent talk on my company's behalf, how much data am I going to have to give it? How much training? Can you kind of speak towards that in high level?
Sure, sure. So in terms of the difficulty, the cost of these AI agents, and this goes for all agents, whether it's a chatbot or whether it's a voice agent like the one we did today, is completely tied to the development inside of things. So as you saw here, in about 20 minutes, we had a basic agent. Now, is that prompt ready for publish? No, that is just a proof of concept to get it to talk a little bit about local IT. But if you need a basic AI receptionist, these aren't super time consuming to build. It's really about managing that prompt. So that's where the most of the work is going to happen. Now you'll have a little bit of work to do on tying in with whatever UCaaS or PBX system your business is using, so that you make sure that it forwards to the correct people and that it has its own place, because that's basically how these AIs work, is they just get inserted into your phone system at the right juncture. So for a lot of people, that juncture is, I couldn't pick up the phone call. So instead of going to voicemail, it goes to my AI agent, who then is able to do basically as much as we can do. To the cost and the complexity start to escalate when you need to have a very robust agent that's maybe an omni agent that can handle multiple SMS, text, voice calls, and tie into multiple systems. So maybe you're tying into Jobber, HubSpot, Go High Level, stuff like that. Those systems, maybe are one level of difficulty. And then you have very specific niche, I would say niche CRMs that are specific to an industry, like pest control or alarms. That's where it gets more difficult, because the more specific, the more difficult. But it's all doable. It just, if that answers your question on the time and the complexity and the cost, they're really tied to just how much you want to do. What we did today is not hard to do, and it doesn't take a lot of time to set up. It just, just have to test the prompts, run it through your edge cases, and make sure that it's going to be as accurate as possible.
No, that definitely answers at the level that I think is most beneficial for the nature of this training. I don't see any other hands raised, but I do see we have time. So hopefully I encourage others to raise your hand and ask some question. But of course, I'll give you another one. What about as far as what you're seeing with people adopting AI and putting this into all the places that you have experience with, and what you're kind of gave us feedback that we can kind of understand what you're doing. But I have kind of a specific one while you're describing that is, what about breaking out of the chatbot? So if I'm interacting, I didn't want to go to voicemail, but and maybe I've got a call center of 1 or a call center of 5, but we're in the busy summer season, but the customer just doesn't want to talk to that chatbot and is frustrated by even the mention of talking to an AI bot. Is there an elegant way to break out of that where they can leave a voicemail? How do you handle those kind of things so they get to an agent, a human agent?
You always give the customer an out, because there are people that don't want to talk to an AI. It's a surprisingly small percentage. I mean, most people either are happy to, or they are even impressed by the quality of the voice, because we always up front say this is an AI, so that there's no surprises, because nobody likes to be deceived. So it's always, hi, this is so-and-so, and you get to pick your name, the AI assistant for business. I strongly recommend that. I've never had anybody go against that. Everybody agrees that, you say up front, this is an AI assistant. And if they don't want to talk to an AI, they say, no, I want to talk to a person. Then the business decides how to handle that. Most often they are routed to a voicemail, say, okay, well, the reason you're talking to an AI is because the business owner's with another customer, but you can leave a voicemail if you'd rather do that. So you give them an elegant way out. A lot of these communication AI agents, really, I like to think of them as sort of a concierge. Pretend you've gone to some place where you want something done, and you have to wait, your turn. So while you're waiting, somebody comes up and brings you a cup of coffee, asks, can I answer your questions? Can I get you a water? That's sort of what we're trying to build here is, when you can't get to the business owner, instead of just leaving a message and waiting for a text back, so you actually have an AI that's going to answer a lot of questions. It may even do more than that. It may actually book calls. It may take your information and ingest you into the system as a customer. And it depends on the business and how their system works and what level of complexity they want to have and what level of integration they want to have with the AI agent. How much power are they going to give the AI agent? But we always build that easy way out of these situations for people that don't want to talk to AIs.
Understood. So I still don't see a hand raise. So I'm going to give you another one. Hopefully this will keep bringing things.
I should have gone slower on the build. I was rushing because I wanted to save time for questions.
No. I think it's good. I've got another one. I think this will be meaningful for everyone. So what about retaining that data? So let's say that I'm one call deep and I had a good interaction, or my customer, I got to him and said, wow, that was really cool. I enjoyed that. Or I get another customer and said, I really didn't enjoy that. And let's say I'm 50 calls in, I'm 100 calls in, I go through an entire season. What do I get to go back and look at this? Are there logs? I kind of want to understand the data. Does it help me train?
Yes.
Does the AI do that for me? Can you talk to, what does the data look like? How do I interact with that data? And does it help me train and make it a better bot?
So the calls are all logged. You have the option within VAPI, which is another reason I like VAPI. It gives you options to, I'm not going to put the screen back up, but if you go into the advanced settings, you have options to make sure that you're HIPAA compliant. So that would turn off voice, that would turn off the logging. It makes sure that it protects PII. So they're very enterprise forward in their system, so that you can meet legal compliance depending on the industry. If there aren't restrictions, then you can, of course, log all of the calls and the recordings, dependent upon your state. You can do that legally in Alabama, and you have a log that you can use to train AIs. It doesn't automatically train, but it gives you information. It gives you statistics to say, you can program in what is a failure and what is a success, and it'll track your failures and successes, so you can see where the AI is. Maybe the AI is supposed to always, if it's an outbound agent, it's supposed to always book a appointment, which it can't do. But you could measure that, and you could say, well, if it books an appointment, it's a success, and if it doesn't, it's a failure. And then you could make changes to it based off of patterns you saw in the failures, and try to improve that number, because that is, as you and I have talked about millions of times, the AI is only as good as its data. The beauty of this process is it's collecting that data, which you can then turn into useful training information.
Again, I don't see a hand raised, but you spurred another question that not necessarily people would be thinking about. And we have had conversations about this, and you reminded me on one that I forget what the answer is, but you've been going off of the premise that we're controlling the data. We're kind of in you can use a couple different terms here, a walled garden, or you have guardrails in place where you're keeping everything in. And the only time you use ChatGPT, and I may be misunderstanding what happened here, is for that initial grab of that data. And you're going to continue to have control of that data. But can you use, what if I wanted to kind of this is awesome, I've gone through a season, I want to try to expand this and do even more. Can I let it loose on ChatGPT? Can I let it loose on Gemini and have those questions be answered by the AI?
Are you asking if, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Let's say that it's going really well, and that data, someone said, I have a question about voice over IP, and I don't necessarily have that, and using local IT as the example, and I don't necessarily have that, but I could have that question diverted to an AI. I can say, okay, go ahead and let ChatGPT answer that. Is that dangerous? Are there any pitfalls to that? What's your recommendation?
Yes, there are. I'm a big fan of building a very hallucination-free environment, and you do that with guardrails. If you can, in your agent instructions, say, if somebody asks about this topic, I want you to specifically say this, and that builds your safety net. So if you didn't have documentation on your website, Michael, about voice AIs, but you didn't want that window to close, you could say, if somebody's interested in voice AIs, say this, and then you give them specifically what you yourself would want to say, which might be, we are totally capable of building voice AIs. Please give us a call to talk more about it. So it doesn't close that customer off and send them somewhere else, but it also keeps, it keeps the AI from saying something over promising, saying, sure, yeah, we'll build you a voice AI. It'll, be great and connected to everything. That's the danger of just letting ChatGPT or any AI run wild. That's why we have agents. The agents are there to control and put a strict, boundary on what these AIs are going to do, because, there's always a chance that an AI is going to hallucinate. So, we take that out of the equation by putting in those guardrails. But I don't know if that answers what you were asking or not.
It does. It does.
Okay.
I guess what I wanted to hear from that, I'll just give you feedback to that, is it's a cautionary tale. If you're going to run out there and not use an AI consultant or a professional, make sure that you're being cautious of just, if whatever tool you decide to use allows you to, you're like, oh, wow, I could just use the AI to answer my questions. Cautionary tale. It could make promises about your company that you can't keep.
Can I interject real quick? Can you, Chris, give me some examples of real world successes that you've seen by implementing these bots? So whether it be sales conversions, whether it be lead generation, can you give, with some of the bots that you've built for businesses, can you share with us some
Yeah.
wins and successes?
So sure, yeah. We've had a bot for so we have a couple. We have one. It's not a voice though. It helps. It's a play. I don't know what the industry called it, but it's for kids play. And so basically, it's a booking bot. That was one of the early ones. We have but specifically for the voice, we have bots that act as receptionists. That's mostly what we do. We don't do a lot of outbound. That is something we're getting more into with sales. So one of the big wins on some of these was just reducing voice call. Mostly it's people that are overwhelmed. So, 30, depending on the industry, it's anywhere from 30 to 50% reduction of voice calls that people are having to handle. So I would think it was about 35% for one we did for an animal shelter here locally. There was, cleaning business that, I think they're came down higher, 50% of the calls handled. So, we also have businesses, like, what do you call them? Property managers. So property managers have seen big benefits because they don't have to be worried about being on call all the time. So they can get like, it'd be the middle of the night, there's a problem, the AI handles that. SMS text back is a big one. There's been, there's things outside, I guess, the purview of voice agents, but I would say the biggest win is just, having those calls not missed. People see their, I did ask for some statistics. It's not the word I'm looking for, but when some KPIs from a couple of these businesses year over year or month over month. And there was an uptick in new leads because those phone calls were just not getting missed. So there's people that call and they need a service and they get a voicemail. So they just go to the next service because people are impatient. Well, with the voice AI, or the chat bot, in certain cases, you get that person, you hold on to them. Not all the time, but it's just a percentage uptick. So it varies how much reduction you get and how much uptick in sales you get or leads you get, depends on the industry. And it also depends on your traffic. If you get a lot of website traffic, then a chatbot makes sense. But if you're not getting a lot of people, then it doesn't really move the needle that much. So it's tied. And if you're overwhelmed with phone calls, then the voice AI receptionist makes a sense. But if you're more somebody who's in sales where you make outbound calls, then that part doesn't make sense so much as the outbound agents do.
And of course, everything you do is customizable given the circumstance.
Right. And some of the stuff we do doesn't even involve voice agents. It's just, hey, can you make these two softwares talk to each other using a little AI? So, sometimes the solution is just, a custom automation, because there's a lot of stuff that happens on the back end that, would not be fun to go into on a call like this, but maybe a future presentation could show a little bit of that. The automations that happen behind the call, those tools, so to speak.
Well, wonderful. Chris, I want to thank you for your time today. I don't see any more questions. Michael, do you see any?
No hands raised.
Well, wonderful. Again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everyone else who spent their hour with us. We really do appreciate your time. It means a lot to us. We're going to follow up again with a survey to everybody who attended this meeting, just asking, where can we improve? Where can we get better? And as always, give us a little time and we will get this posted on YouTube so you can go back and rewatch this, and hopefully I hope this sparked your interest. I hope you find a way you can use this and use this technology to advance your business. Again, thank you so much, Chris, Michael, for all your help. And again, y'all have a wonderful day. Look forward to the next one.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you much.